All right, you guys, welcome to the final day of NCHB's 2021 conference. So today, this discussion will be around including perspectives of those with lived experience in our work. I want to welcome everybody to the session. Just before we get started, a couple of technical things. You guys are on mute and your videos are turned off, but you can use the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen to ask questions, make comments. We'll reserve about 20 minutes at the very end for Q&A and some discussion. And then this entire session is being recorded. We've been sending out an email every morning of conference with the slides and recordings from the day before. So if you have to sign off, sign back in, you miss something or we share something and you want to go back and reference it, check your emails. They're all there. I think that's everything. Like I said, I'll be back in the very end to facilitate discussion. So keep your comments and questions coming throughout the session and we'll get to it at the end. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Dina.
Thank you.
I have a quick question, just real quickly. You see Carlos up there? That's my pseudonym. I'm a military contractor still. So I didn't change it over from my last meetings. That's why it says Carlos instead of Richard.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi, Richard.
Hey.
And good day, everyone. My name is Dina Hushar, and I have the pleasure and honor of co-facilitating today's panel discussion entitled Conversations about Homelessness, Perspectives from Veterans with Lived Experience. And thank you to you all in the audience for taking the time to join this conversation. And thank you to our panelists for sharing their insights. And thank you to NCHB for having the wisdom to dedicate a theme of the day to reflect on lived experience. Incorporating the knowledge gained from this experience into the work of ending and preventing homelessness is essential to our work's success. As a physician and the director of VA's National Center on Homelessness Among Veterans, I actively support efforts to inform our work with insights from veterans with lived experience of homelessness. Under the leadership of our center's research director, Dr. Jack Tsai, we created the Homeless Veterans Research Engagement Panel. Its purpose is to assist the center in promoting veteran-centered research through them providing input to center-affiliated research projects. The panelists today are part of the center's panel. I would like to take this opportunity to publicly acknowledge the center's appreciation for their contributions to advancing research-driven solutions to ending and preventing homelessness. If you would like to learn more about the center's panel, I put a link in the chat box to where you can find us. Basically, go to your favorite search engine, type in National Center on Homelessness Among Veterans, click on the research tab, and then click on the panel tab. And I would like to introduce my wonderful co-facilitator, Dr. Justine Hyde, who's an anthropologist, researcher at the Bedford VA, and a regular co-facilitator of the center's panel. She will introduce our panel members, and then we'll start our discussion. As Jasmine stated, we would answer your questions in the chat box towards the end of our discussion. Thank you, everybody. Justine?
Great. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you're coming in from today. I know it's quite early for one of our panel members who's up in Alaska, so appreciate the opportunity to be here today. We have an amazing panel of a couple of our members of our what we call our Vet Rep or Research Engagement Panel. So I'm just going to do a quick introduction and then we have a question to kick us off. So Betty Hill, wave Betty. Betty is a U.S. Army veteran who comes to us from Maryland. And we have Richard Hughes, also known as Carlos. It's a pseudonym for today. A U.S. a U.S. Army veteran from Missouri. And Vicki Powers is a U.S. Air Force veteran. And perhaps an Army brat. I told her I would tell everyone. From Texas. And Pearson Kennedy Crosby. He is our Alaskan representative. So he logs in the earliest in the morning for all of our meetings. And I don't think that we have Greg White. Don't see that Greg has joined us, but he may pop in. And he is from New Mexico. So without further ado, I've asked each of the panel members to spend a few minutes just describing what their experience has been like with housing and circumstances that they have had in their own personal lives that have led to losing housing in the past. And I think, Betty, if you don't mind starting, kicking us off, just a few minutes on that.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I came into the program because of abuse. It was to the extreme that I walked away from everything. And when I walked into the VA, I was in crisis. When I say crisis, I was nothing short of just nothing but tears. And it had gone on for a while. I was assisted for 11 months from the start to the end. The VA at the time, what they did was put me with a shelter in the city because they wanted to do an outpatient medical counseling, the whole works, but they wanted me to go back to the house because I was not considered homeless because I had access to the house. I left on my own. And at the time, my crisis was that I couldn't go back. It was the end for me. And I had to get them to see that. The place they put me in the beginning was in an area that I couldn't accept. I just couldn't accept that whole environment. My crisis was I needed to get out of an environment like that. And like I said, I was for a total of 11 months from the start to the end. They helped me. They assisted me with resources. The resources was a place called the House of Ruth. I lived there for 11 months. And as living there, I started working there as an intake person. So it worked out for me. I mean, I haven't had any problems since then, but it took a while. It took about 5 years for me to get everything together. But with their help, I did it. It wasn't easy. The VA process wasn't easy. The House of Ruth wasn't easy. But with the resources and everybody working together, I came out good, very good. And I've been out ever since. So I'm stable now. I haven't been homeless. I haven't been almost homeless since then.
Thank you, Betty. Richard, I'm wondering if you could say a few words about your experiences.
Yeah, my name's Richard. Pardon the name up there. I'm part of something else and I have to use a pseudonym. But anyway, my homeless experience goes quite a ways back. And I answered these questions the other night after they got sent out. And I basically chose homelessness out of an ignorance that I had because I couldn't cope with my emotions when I got discharged. And I couldn't be around people. I stayed upset and angry all the time and got in a little bit of trouble. So before it got any worse, I packed a bunch of stuff I had in the back of an old truck that I had, and I drove out to West Texas out in the middle of nowhere, and I lived on the Rio Grande River for 9 months because I didn't know what else to do. So now I'd go down to the crossing there on the river about once a month, and it was 5 miles to where I was camped at. And I'd cross over to Mexico into a little village called Boquillas Crossing. And I'd take the bus to Mexico City, and I'd go to Mexico City, and I'd stay for a couple, 2 or 3 days. I'd stay in a hotel, cheap hotel where I had some air conditioning and some clean water. I mean, the river was fine, but, you know, just to be able to spend 2 or 3 days in civilization, you know. So, and then I had some buddies get a hold of me from up in Arizona because I went up there and I visited some of them one time just to go visit some people that I hadn't seen in a while. And I ended up moving to Mesa. And then I got my life back together. I quit doing a lot of things that I didn't need to be doing anymore. But I think my point in being in all this is that this was a long time ago that this happened. And these facilitations that we have now weren't even thought of then. So the fact that we get to do this now is it's very moving to me. And anything that I have that goes with that, I got my head straightened out. I got my finances straightened out. Went back to work. But and it's made me better to cope with what I got going on now, because I've lost two sons to suicide in the last year and a half. I'm going through my third divorce, and I'm about broke. I'm not homeless because I live with a very beautiful lady who's a Navy veteran as well. And so I'm just thankful to God for bringing me out of it. And I'm real thankful to the VA and the resources they provide now, because it keeps me out of it. And that's all I really got to say.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. I'm going to circle back with a few questions after we do these initial introductions. And welcome, Greg.
I've actually been listening all along, just on the computer that doesn't have a webcam, so I finally was able to fix this one and show you all my ugly face.
Well, welcome, welcome. I'm going to turn to Vicki now. Hi, Vicki. You're still on mute there.
Had to find the mute button. I just want to say hello, everyone. I go by Vivacious Vicky, and it's just because my ego used to call me Victim Vicky. But my story, in short, was I was homeless from 2011 to 2013, so it was later after my military years, way after. And then again in 2015 through 2017, so gaps of 2 years apart. The first experience was similar to Betty's, that had to do with a toxic relationship. And although I was employed, I was actually employed part-time at a nonprofit, and going to school full-time. And yeah, so that, without going into great detail, that led to my first experience of homelessness. And during that time period, I had basically spent the night in my vehicle or my job. I would close my facility up and set the alarm until I got caught one time, moving around and set the alarm. And then it was the post office next door to that particular, Y. There was times where I was fortunate that I was still enrolled in college full time. So I would use their 24-hour library to crash after studying and then eat vending machine food. And the second homelessness period happened why I did get housed. Actually, it wasn't using the VA, the HUD batch services. It actually was, I found out through the YMCA community outreach that they were building a facility specifically for low-income veterans. And I thought it would be a shoe-in. And that process was hell. And I'll talk about that later. But make a long story short, I was able to get into the facility, and then that end up being the nightmare in disguise, because it made me flash back to when I was in the military as if I was in a barracks. And because the ratio of men to females in that environment was out of 197 apartments, 3 apartments was females. And so, yeah, there was prostitution of female veterans there. I was, I guess, they were trying to get me into prostitution. And so it was a spiral downward. But I wanted to stay there because I could afford there. And make a long story short, I wasn't on any assistance, but what happened was when I needed the financial assistance, the ball got dropped with the, the SSBF. And then I got wrongfully evicted. And that started another spiral into homelessness. That's my story.
Thank you, Vicki, for sharing that. I'm going to ask Pearson to share a little bit.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess good morning or good afternoon. And on the East Coast, that's about 9 o'clock here, a little bit after. I guess with my experience, I can chalk it up to being a stubborn Marine. I had moved to Alaska with my significant other, and just after coming back from a security detail in Phuket, Thailand, I guess I let the alcohol take over a little too much, and I was, not in the best place. We ended up, breaking up. I ended up leaving the house. No violence or anything like that was involved. It was more or less, I was a little bit too much to handle at the time. I guess it's, pretty much the story of my life. I am difficult to live with. But I say stubborn because I did have somewhat of a network here, but I was maybe I was too proud to let anybody know that I was sleeping in my truck, which it was, fall in Alaska, and temperatures start to drift pretty low after that. So about 2 months of that, me between my truck and a pop-up camper that I somehow afforded, but yeah, I mean it wasn't more than a few months, but it was something that I learned a lot about myself and how important it is for not letting your pride take over, and allowing yourself to ask for help when you need it. I mean, in those 2 months, 3 months, I think I slept on my buddy's couch a few times, and it was always open to me, but I was just I just didn't want him to fully grasp the situation I was in. And I ended up starting a company driving. So I had my truck. I started with my truck and $700, and that kind of got me back on my feet, but I'll save that for later. That's what I got for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Person. And then Greg. Greg is joined a little late. He's a U.S. Air Force and Coast Guard veteran. And we're just doing these well, you've been on. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I had a little problem with a laptop that has a webcam, so I was watching you guys on the desktop that doesn't have a webcam. Basically, I've been homeless, I believe, around 4 times in my life. The first time was I was just under 17. I had enough of my mother's craziness. She had done too many drugs as an emergency room nurse, and back in those days, they didn't have the strict controls on drugs they have now. So she'd be able to just, pocket handfuls of drugs. And she was also an alcoholic. So it wasn't a lot of fun to be living around. I had to, if I wanted to eat, I had to make the meal. If I wanted clean clothes, I had to do the laundry. I had to do dusting and mopping and, all the stuff parents should be doing. And this is pretty much from as far back as I can remember, probably 3 or 4 years old, until I finally ran away a couple weeks before my 17th birthday. I was a maintenance person, mostly for snow shoveling in the winter, raking up some leaves for the apartments behind where I lived. So I had a key for their storage room, and there wasn't very much in the storage room, but there was a mattress. And so I was able to crash there. And then, if I saw my mother go out or something, which all I had to do was look over and see whether the car was in the driveway or not. I'd sneak back in the house and get some cleaner clothes and stuff, you know. So that went on for a while until finally my mother was involuntarily committed, and one of my aunts and uncles families took me in. And so then I finished high school, got into college, did that, kind of was swimming in, not really knowing what I wanted to end up actually doing in life or getting a degree in. So I ended up dropping out for a few years, had some ups and downs with employment um, during that time. And so fortunately, I did have a car. So the times when I couldn't afford an apartment, I at least had a car to live in. Um, but always, what ended up always happening in those three circumstances was somebody, um, a friend, a family member, somebody I don't even know on the street, somebody always gave me a hand up to be able to get me going, set me back on the right track to be able to um, become a productive member of society again. None of those times did I receive any type of help from the VA, even though I requested it. I didn't get food stamps or any voucher housing or any medical care or anything else. But, you know, each time one of my friends commented to me, you know, Greg, every time you lose everything, 6 months later, you have more than what you lost. And I just told him, well, that's just keeping faith in my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, that, you know, he says he cares more about me than the grass of the fields and the sparrows and stuff. And I believe it. So fortunately, at this point in life, as long as somebody doesn't do something stupid like burn the apartment down, like happened in one of my condos, I should be hopefully here for another 20 or 30 years until I pass away, God willing.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you. So I have asked our panel members to think about 3 questions, and that just to preview what I've asked them. I've asked them to think about, you know, what's 1 or 2 things that really helped you when you were experiencing homelessness, that helped you transition into more stable housing. And conversely, what made it really difficult? What were some of the missed opportunities that we can hear about and learn about and think about identifying and perhaps working to change in our current practices or in our research? And then the last question is, you know, if you could make a recommendation, what are the things that we should be doing to prevent veterans from becoming homeless? And for those who are experiencing homeless, what can we do to serve them and help move them into housing? So I am going to open up the first question. What are the things that were most helpful? Because I think it's helpful to hear, like, what are the things that people have done that we can keep doing? What should we keep doing? Or what should people keep doing? Vicki, I see that you took yourself off mute, so I'm going to ask you first.
I think If they're engaged, if veterans are already engaged with the VA hospital, occupational therapy and recreational therapy, I'm talking about occupational therapy having to do with mental health, is a big lifesaver. It was a big lifesaver for me. And the reason being is because it could do a lot of preventive stuff before the crisis occurs. And then also, I'm going to toot my horn for peer services because I am now employed as a peer support specialist in Houston. And that's what's given me the hope. And then also help me. I don't directly work with homeless veterans, but it's like I actually help navigate veterans to peers who do specialize in that. But because I have the lived experience with it, I do actually assist and navigate those in the veterans who need those services. So that's what I wanted to say about that.
Thank you. Greg, what was helpful for you?
This probably isn't going to be something you want to hear, but begging, good old fashioned begging on the street corner. I had to get money up for deposit for a Section 8 apartment. You know, they'll pay your monthly rent once you're in the unit, but you can't get in the unit until you pay deposits, which they don't cover. So there's the catch-22 there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you know, it wasn't easy. Had to do it, you know, out in the freezing cold. Had to do it in the sweltering sun. Lots of people curse me and stuff. And had, you know, fortunately, a lot more people that were very, very, very nice to me. Did have one gentleman who questioned if I was a veteran, even though I've got my New Mexico veteran's license plate on my car and I'm standing at the back of my car, and I showed him my VA hospital ID and still didn't want to believe I was a veteran. So, oh well. But yeah, and it's you know, it sounds like a negative thing, but if you get a fairly decent day when people are generous and stuff, I probably had my lowest day was $15. My highest day was just short of 400. So it took me about 3 weeks of doing that to work up the $750 in deposit money I needed. But then I was into a place with a, you know, regular apartment with a roof over my head and all that kind of stuff.
The kindness and generosity of others was helpful.
Yes, very. There was a negative too that hampered was that the VA works in partnership with some other charitable organizations, and around my neck of the woods, they work with Goodwill to get people housing and stuff, but they have the same problem, you know, as I had with Section 8. They at most would only, and things might have changed because we're talking like 2004, I think. But the the gentleman at the Goodwill that was supposed to be able to help with veterans housing basically could only do the same thing Section 8 did, which, you know, if I'm in a place or something, he can get me on a subsidy program, but I had to come up with my own way of how I'm going to get the deposits. And since I had a dog, then even though I didn't really think it's any of his or the VA's business, I wasn't eligible for that program if I had an animal that was anything other than trained, animal for helping some kind of medical condition or whatever. So there are definitely a lot of roadblocks, and without the help of some people, family, friends, strangers, you know, um, who knows what would happen.
Right, right. Thank you, Greg. Richard, I wonder if you have thoughts about like what was helpful, what has been helpful for you, and
I'll tell you what's been helpful for me for quite a few years was I think everybody probably, not everybody, but I always didn't believe it until it happened to me, but God spoke to me and that helped me out a great deal over the last 10 years.
Mhm.
And I've just been saved in the last 10 years. And before that, I finally realized that what I did in the Army, I was a soi sponte. It means I lead without being told to lead, it's a Ranger Creed type of thing. So I realized that nobody else is going to help me if I don't help myself. So I didn't go out to try to recreate the wheel. What I did was I really dug into it. And back in those days, we didn't have the internet. So it was more difficult pounding around an old 66 truck, trying to get back into society again. It was really difficult. And then people were off put, by me and stuff, because I guess my mind wasn't all together there, but there was a spark inside of me that was saying, you got to get out of this situation. You got to get out of this situation. Because I almost got ate by wolves twice. That ain't cool. Yeah. So yeah, I was like, man, I got to do something different. So doing that, and then I went to San Antonio VA is where I went and initiated my claims and all this other stuff. And it was a pretty slow and archaic process back then. You got to pardon my voice. I just had another neck surgery on Monday. I've got my neck's been fused again, so my voice is all messed up. So
we're glad you could make it today.
yeah, I'm sitting in my office. I took my collar off so I could at least talk a little bit. So
that's great.
But yeah, just finding a way. And once I got engaged with the VA, even back in those early days, it was more outside of the VA stuff, programs that were going on to help veterans inside the VA than there was inside the VA. You had all these support groups outside. So that's what really helped me a lot. And just people just seeing me and say, hey, man, can we help you? And so what I did, and I think this could all boil down to one point, is just for any veterans that might be watching this right now, is if you got problems, just be upfront and honest with them, with the VA, with what you got going on. They're there to help you. And there's 3 people I trust. That's my pastor, my neurosurgeon, at the VA, my doctors, and my attorney. And you got to trust them, and you got to be, you just got to be open with everything, because they can't fix you if they don't know what's always going on. So I think it's a process, and sometimes people have a hard time coping with that, and revealing what their issues are and stuff like that. So I think that the support services that they've fleshed out over the years now to be what they are, I think they're the most wonderful thing the VA has. And because even now, they call me constantly, hey, how are you doing? You all right? You want to do this? I just got a call from Poplar Bluff VA yesterday and today, wanting to know if I wanted to be on a conference today at this time. I was like, I can't, I'm doing something else. So, ever since, and I'm over that mountain and back on the other side, I live a retired life, and I have a really good life now. And actually I live the best life I've ever lived. I live in it right now. But it's because of the VA and those programs that were very nascent back then. And it was a lot more public support back then. And it seems like with all this stuff going on in the world now, this turmoil, it's almost seemed like that's almost trying to be reversed, And I hate to see that, we got people wanting to, and I'm not going to be on a political horse or anything like that, because I'm not a political person, but I did swear an oath to this flag. And it hurts my heart to see what's going on now. And I think that it's just because we got a lot of people do hurtful things, you know. And so I think we really focus on addressing mental issues and just, I mean, really stay on top of that, man. Just stay on top of that. You know, I gave a dude on the corner 3 MREs out of my little 3-day bag the other day. It's here, man. You know, I don't care. You've always got something you can give, you know. You know, back when I was still kind of active, I'd help feed homeless people on the river. Hey, man, can you want to go over here? We can go. I said, I can get you someplace. And I just turned around and bit me in the butt a couple of times because I always like to help other people. And I finally learned, don't bring those issues. It doesn't make them bad people, but don't bring them into your personal space, you know. So, and I think that can work both ways. You can get in some groups, don't get caught up in the group itself, get caught up in the reason why you're in that group. That's what you need to get caught up in. Don't turn it into a social clique. I mean, it can be that, but you got to really look at it first and foremost. Like I look at this group. This group helps me to improve my life. But in turn, I know that my shared experiences are going to help other veterans to maybe not go down that same road that I went down, or Vicky, or anybody else on this panel, you know. So I think just being more vocal and the advocacy is, and really letting veterans know, hey, you can. There's stuff here that will help you. I run into veterans all the time, man. I don't know how to get help. I don't know how to get help. Well, let me show you. You know, and it's real easy. I give them Veterans Crisis Hotline numbers. First thing I give them, you know, I give them that, and they'll call me a week or so later. Hey, man, can you help me fill out this form? I was like, yeah, I'm not a VSO, but I'm real familiar with it. Well, I was actually the VSO for my Legion post for a while. So, but you know, that there just because once other veterans see other veterans are willing to go out of their way to help them, once they get up to where they can stand tall and straight, they're going to just be a force multiplier to help other veterans. So, and then we're back to where we need to be anyway. We're helping each other because we're our brothers and our sisters in uniform.
Yeah.
So, and that's really all I can see there is just keep the programs you got going now, expand them, make them more available. That's it.
Yeah, I also hear from you, Richard, the value of the peer-to-peer, veteran-to-veteran support being really important.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We had a great group up here in St. Louis. It was called the Interdisciplinary Pain Rehabilitation Group. It was a CARF accredited program. It was like the only one in the country at the time. They got one at Johns Hopkins down. I think they got one in San Francisco. But it helped a lot of us to deal with our chronic pain issues because I've had my neck's been broken 3 times. My back was broken 3 places. And I was in a helicopter crash. So down in Central America. So
yeah. I wonder, Betty, I wonder if you have thoughts about what's been most helpful. Thank you, Richard. Wonder if you have some thoughts about things that have been really helpful, that were really helpful for you when you needed it.
I think just the support. Once I made up my mind that it was time to go, it's the support you get from other people. The way they make you feel safe. The way you know, I lost my voice. I had no voice anymore. It helped me get my voice back, my self-esteem. You know, it was a long process, but a lot of people you meet, for me, I really had no voice. I didn't communicate. I just wanted to be gone out of the situation I was in. And I didn't know how to communicate that with the people who were trying to help me in the beginning. And because of that, it made things different. But when I started feeling safe, or they helped me to feel safe, it was much easier. In saying this, I just wanted them to do what they was gonna do, and I didn't want to talk about it. But that's not the way to go. And they made me understand, helped me to understand that. And in doing that, like I said, it took a while. I started feeling safe, not so much as from the help from the VA, because I was still skeptical as to the first place they put me in. I didn't understand how you're gonna put me in a situation that I'm trying to get out of. When I tried to relate it to them, well, you're not exactly homeless. What you are is trying to leave a situation. I said, yes, but I'm homeless because I don't have a home to go back to. Once I found a way to communicate that to them, things started to get easier. But I didn't get that from the VA. I got that from the place that was in the community that I went to live. And with those kind of situations, it's when you already feel that you're beaten down, to go into an office and you have someone to tell you, well, this is what you're going to do and this is all we have to offer, is not the way to go. You need someone who's going to hear what you're saying, take the time to hear it, and really hear it, not just what's coming out of my mouth. Just, I'm giving you the situation, so help me to kind of maneuver myself into this new world I'm trying to go into. And a lot of times when you walk into VA, you don't get that. You really don't. You get, this is what we have to offer. Either you take it or you don't. And that's not what's needed. But again, they have a lot of outside resources where I mean, a lot that came into play. And with those resources, was much better than what the VA gave me. Medical assistance, mental help is what they helped me mostly with. The living situation came from outside resources. The whole 11 months I was out there, the VA gave me no monetary assistance whatsoever. This came from outside. All of the counseling, all of the peer support came from outside. All of the, like I said, the counseling I got for my mental issues came from the VA. And I think with that, that's how I started to feel safe.
And I think we have a lot of people who are listening in who are in community settings and, you know, working for nonprofits and, you know, I think want to figure out how do we coordinate care better and provide total care in a way that makes the most sense for each individual, rather than a cookie cutter approach and assuming that one agency or one location is the best for everybody all the time.
Yes.
So I appreciate the sharing that not all of what you needed was taken care of in one place, and that it was the creative and compassionate care of others outside of VA as well that really helped.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Pearson, I wonder, oh, go ahead, Vicki.
I just want to tag on real quick about what Betty said as far as the mental health. Mental health is just, I'm not saying that it's the only thing, but it is the key thing, not only in prevention, but in the process. Because the definition of homelessness with like HUD-VASH, I never qualified for in the beginning. And then the second time it did, but that was after I was in crisis, after I served 21 days, you know, on an inpatient, and then didn't have a place to go to. But I was fortunate of a per diem, but the per diem that I went to was, I want to say, haven of hell in a sense, because there was abuse on it. So if in the future that the VA looks for people who are per diems, I wish they would do their research really, really carefully, because sometimes they can put veterans in a bigger crisis.
Careful, Betty. Thanks, Vicki. And now Pearson.
All right. So the original question, this first question was what helped get out of the situation, correct? Yeah. So I a little bit of background on me. Got out of the Marine Corps, went to the VA, got handfuls of medications given to me. I ended up getting pretty severely addicted to the opiates and benzodiazepines. Ended up getting my first bag of heroin on federal property, which was the Philadelphia VA Medical Center, while I was trying to get clean from the medication that I was getting. And no fault, I don't blame the doctors for giving me what they did. I was a 23-year-old special operations Marine that had 2 combat deployments, that was in severe pain and wasn't adjusting very, very well to normal society or civilian life. With that came a incident with the Philadelphia Police Department. I got recommended to the Philadelphia Veterans Court, which helped turn my life around. This was back in 2014, I believe. And the care that I got there, the willingness for everyone from the judge to the DA to the probation officer, the public defendant, the VJO, or the Veterans Justice Officer, there, that team allowed me to realize that there is something that there's something here that I need, that's allowed me to stay literally alive, because a lot of the things I was doing at that time before I was picked up, I'm surprised I'm still alive from that, and that's not even factoring in the stuff that I had to do in combat, or I decided to run through in combat. And just the willingness to be able to deal with me and actually care, show that they cared, was something that really was impactful to me. And from after graduation, I went right back to the Veterans Treatment Court in Philadelphia, and I became a peer mentor. Helped Bucks County Veterans Court also. After that, it was just an amazing experience with a bunch of people that really, really cared. And a majority of them weren't veterans. I mean, 50-50, I'll give it that. So I felt responsible to them, because they gave me a chance when I was at my lowest, absolutely. And I mean, I wasn't, I still had I didn't experience any type of homelessness at that point. Like I said, it was only a brief time that I did. But that's what I think helped me, get through it, and didn't choose suicide through, just like a lot of the Marines that most of the Marines that from my unit that are no longer with us, chose suicide. I mean, there was, I want to say I quit counting around 35 in my battalion. And it for some time there, it was once a week, even sometimes twice a week, that there were people that I knew that I served with that decided to, either drive out into the desert and put one in their face, or do something completely reckless. And that's another factor with it, is, a lot of those guys had families, and at that time I didn't really have anybody that I was relying on. Now I do. I found a young lady that deals with me, and we have 2 young boys. So I'm glad that I didn't, not that I had any, we all have those type of thoughts, but I wasn't in that position, because I felt responsible to the people that, really helped me get through some of my darkest hours, and then became a crisis intervention trainer for the Philadelphia Police Department, tribal veterans representative up here. And this is all before I experienced those couple months without having a residence. But the thing that really got me through it was being responsible to the people that helped me, and being responsible to the people that I've helped in that time. Alaska is not a place where we have much resources. I mean, we have a lot of natural resources, but when it comes to veterans, we're the highest per capita veterans in the United States. Yet we're the only state without a hospital, a veterans hospital. The distance between here and Anchorage or Juneau, I can't get to Juneau without driving through a different country, Canada, or flying. So the capital is not accessible by land unless I have a passport. Not that much is in Juneau besides the legislator, but we are absolutely, we're on our own here. Like I said, we're the only state without a hospital, yet we have the highest per capita veterans population in the country. In order for me to get into the Veterans Affairs clinic, I have to go on base. And I mean, for those of you who have gone on to base after service, you gotta go in, either show your ID to an armed guard, or you have to go into a service center and get a pass. So what really helped me was feeling responsible to the people that have helped me, and the ones that I've worked with that look to me for help, and that's what got me through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Pearson. I do want to make sure that we have some time for our audience to ask questions, but before we do, I'm giving you the big mic, and if you had a magic wand, or I don't know, you were made kings or queens of the universe, or whatever your preferential superpower might be. What would you recommend to those of us who care about this issue deeply and care about preventing homelessness and helping people who are experiencing homelessness? What are some of the, this sounds like a really big question, and, what more could we be doing? What should we be thinking about in our efforts? Richard, kick us off.
Yeah, I think a good thing would be to continue on the path that you're doing now. But I think there's an overlooked sector of veterans that are very homeless, that a lot of people don't pay attention to, or they don't have the courage to go in certain areas to address these people's issues. I found that there's a lot of people that are on the street that are homeless, and I've told them time and time again here in St. Louis, we got the Hope Recovery Center right there, and we've got other places. They'll put you up in a hotel downtown at the Drury Inn or something like that. But I've noticed they don't want the help, or nobody's ever showed them where it's at. So now I can understand you can't make somebody do something they don't want to do, but I think that there might need to be just little roving teams to go around through town with just like a Veterans Help Network band, some kind of something on the side of it. Go into the senior areas of the cities and places where you go into the rural areas. I live in a rural area here in Missouri, and even down here we see people that are homeless. I gave a guy 3 MREs the other day in Farmington, Missouri. That's not a very big town, but it's right on US 67, which is a major thoroughfare. And I think that there's a lot of these communities that aren't being addressed, because I think part of it, and I could be wrong in this, but I know it's getting the veteran to engage with the services to begin with seems to be the toughest part. At least it was for me for a while, and I've had other people reflect that back to me in their experience with the VA. So I think we probably just need people that are, we got a lot of people that want to volunteer, get one of them DAV trucks and drive out into the communities and find these people, but don't go in there timid and afraid. Get people, get guys that are, like Pearson, myself, other people. I did so many tours of duty, I can't even remember. My head's messed up. But you get people that aren't afraid to go places, okay? they have that edge or whatever, but they can go in there with the passion, and they can go in there with a compassion for others, and say, hey, it don't have to be this way, because vets can identify vets pretty easily. And if they're legit, they'll say, well, I can take you over here and get you in the system. All we need is your social security number. I've had that happen more than a couple of times. I've also had, I don't know, man, I don't want to do all that. I don't do all that. Well, those are the ones I don't know why they choose to not do that. I have speculation, but it doesn't need to be addressed here. But that's what I do. And I think that's something that maybe should be implemented, if it can be, across the board for all across the country.
Yeah.
Fine. Get some veteran volunteers that are willing to hop in one of them vans and just go out. St. Louis is a very dangerous city. I've been working up there lately for NGIA. But you can't show fear, but there's people in there that need us, and they need the VA. And with all the turmoil, like I said, that's going on not in the world, mainly our country right now, people are scared. They're scared. They're more scared now than ever. So imagine a veteran that's on the street with mental health issues already, and then all this other crap falling down around him, worrying about COVID and everything else. I think we need actual teams of people going out in the field and just roving and looking, just looking.
Yeah. Boots on the ground, people with passion and compassion.
Exactly.
I love it. Go out, find people, connect. Thank you, Richard. And Vicki,
Greg's hand was up before mine.
Oh, sorry, Greg. I did not
Greg's
see
hand was up.
Okay, Greg, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
No problem. Thank you, Vicki. I wanted to state that the last time Vicki spoke, I believe she hit the nail on the head. There's, I think I mentioned this in our smaller groups. From what I've tried to work with homeless people, where they were veterans or not, when they've been out on the street a certain amount of time, they become institutionalized to that lifestyle the same way that prisoners do when they're in jails and prisons. And it's hard for them to then try to adapt and adjust to get back to quote unquote, normal living with a house and apartment or something, employment and things. So I think that there needs to be some discussion about how to ease these people out, because just like it's an addiction, just like anything else, and how to ease these people out of this addiction of wanting to be on the street to wanting to have a roof over their head and running water and, become productive again. So I think psychiatrists and psychologists working on this for the VA need to come up with a step-by-step plan, which of course has to be adjusted for each individual. Some other things that I've noticed is when veterans are offered housing, they have to make some decisions, and probably some of the things that go into those decisions are, first, of course, most actual VA owned or operated apartments are not going to allow them to have pets. So they're not going to take the apartments. One apartment building in Houston was pretty much, as far as a city would go, it's in the middle of nowhere. Somebody would have to take a bus somewhere to, do even the simplest things, like try to do a little grocery shopping or something like that, and I believe being away from what the action parts of a city are for a lot of people who probably lived in that city in a house or apartment at one time, makes them feel like they're not really worth a lot in the VA's eyes. The VA doesn't want them to be homeless, but here we'll find them a place in Siberia, you know?
Mm.
And so I don't think that gives them good mental. Also, when even non-VA groups, like when I was in Las Vegas, Nevada, that try to help out with veterans and things, and I understand both those groups and the VA have limited funds to do things, but like one of the motels that this veterans group in well, actually, so all the motels this veterans group in Las Vegas, Nevada would put people up in were in the very, very seedy part of town. And if veterans are already having problems with drugs or alcohol, they don't need to be in that type of environment. Um, and, and I understand a lot of things a lot of times come down to cost, but you have to look at cost versus quality. If you put 100 people in a hotel and all they're doing and all the people in the other places around them are doing is encouraging them to party and take drugs and drink and stuff, they're not being helped. So maybe if you take your funds and only take 20 people to a much better area of town where hopefully also closer to wherever they would go for counseling and that kind of thing. Places in towns where the 7-Elevens or whatever are not open 24/7 for them to buy liquor overnight and stuff. You know, of course, that's an impossibility in Las Vegas, Nevada. But, you know, uh, and when you get them to a point where they're readjusting, they're reinstitutionalizing to living what you and I consider a normal life, then of course you need to have employers on board who are willing to take the time to understand, you know, these veterans did a great service for their country. And most of the reason they're messed up is because of the things they saw and had to do in order to protect your freedom, Mr. Employer. You know, can you work with us a little bit, getting to know a few of these veterans and maybe employ one or two of them, and you know, don't push them right into a 40-hour a day work week or anything, but let the veterans get reacclimated, get institutionalized into having employment.
Right.
I hope this all makes sense.
Yeah, Greg. So Greg, I think I hear from you is having some tiers, right? Having some steps to some very thoughtful steps that are tailored to where people are at, that can help move, transition into housing in a way that it makes sense for them.
Yeah,
Great.
because it seems like most.
Great. I'm going to move on to Vicki because I want to make sure that we have some time for Betty and Pearson also to
Okay.
have the magic wand question, and then we get a little chance for questions from the
Okay.
audience. Thank you, though. Vicki.
Yes, Justin. I saw things that hit me on him, but on what was Greg said, but I was in the chat box and I noticed a gentleman, a participant named Jonathan Narcisse. I hope I didn't mispronounce his name, but his question was regarding the Homeless Veteran Reintegration Program, if any of us had experience with that. And I wanted to share that I have myself, and it's the HUD VASH, you know. So once I was able to be awarded my HUD VASH voucher, I'm a success story of it. This September will be my, because they follow us for 5 years now, which is a beautiful thing, because during the time of the 1 or 2 years, things can happen, life happens, and then you lose your voucher and then you're homeless again, you know? So there are success stories. I am a perfect success story on it. I think the first year was when I met with my social worker from month to month. The second year was followed by every quarter. And then I was really fortunate to be able to start paying some of my rent. And then by the 4th year, I was able to be employed. So I was able to pay all of mine, and I'm continuing to do that now.
Great. Thank you, Vicki. Betty or Pearson, do you have any recommendations before we turn it over? Things that you think we should be doing different, could be doing different?
Yeah, well, so, you know, I'm a big, I believe that allowing a person or a veteran to find a purpose once again. I mean, when I was in the Marine Corps, I mean, I was in charge of millions of dollars worth of equipment and training people to protect the country. And I come out, and you know, it's hard to find yourself again. And I by no means am I suggesting that I should be happy. I don't think happiness is something that actually is very rewarding in this life. Nor does once you're happy, or I feel like you might no longer be useful, and nothing in life that's worth doing is easy. So. And I guess that's where I found myself was trying to find this purpose that I'm good at, and that is assisting veterans. And when it comes to how to approach this issue, is with rationale. I mean, to try to take the emotions out of it, because not many people understand what they want or what they need. Most people, you know, I'm going to throw out the Dunning-Kruger effect. People know a lot of stuff that they don't, and the more they know about it, the less they actually know about it. And some things are buried deep inside of us that we can actually, as the person experiencing everything with all the emotions involved, we need somebody to, you know, slap us in the face sometime. Not literally. I mean, unless they can take it, you know.
No, it's not.
But that's it. You know, sometimes I need that, but that's really it. I mean, it's I know, and I go off of 99 out of 100. 99 times out of 100, the veterans that I help, you know, probably aren't going to take my advice to and you know, become you know, this pillar of society, but it is so worth that one that actually does. And just treating every single one of those 99 or every one of those 100 the same, because at least I'm wasting I might not that I think I'm ever wasting my time with it, but there's a good chance that, you know, I'm going to be let down. Maybe I let them down, but that the one that actually gets through it is so worth it. Thanks.
Thanks, Pearson. And Betty, do you have
Greg hit on all the points that I wanted to hit on. Establishing a better system when selecting the housing areas is a major part in helping us to get away from homelessness. Because you got veterans who are turned down, you say, I'm helping you, but when you give them a place that's worse than where they're coming from, it's useless. So I just want to, if we can work on some kind of system where we can establish a better system in selecting where the places are that are housing the veterans.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all very much. I think just from the chat, I can tell how much your sharing has meant to the audience members. I think I'll turn it over to Jasmine or David, who is maybe Jasmine, yeah?
So yeah, I wanted to add to that. I think a lot of the feedback I saw is just people being super grateful and thanking you guys for how helpful your sharing has been. I don't know if you guys have had time to scroll through the chat, but yeah, it's all good stuff. We had a couple of questions that came up, and I think Vicky started to take the first one, the VHH or the HVRP program. So the reintegration program. So the question from the audience is, if any of you guys have had experience with HVRP, it's an employment kind of like a matching and training program. If not, I guess just to add to the question, I'm wondering how you were matched or found employment that you do have now, and found roles that you feel like fit you well. Were there services provided that matched you to the employment programs you found?
I have some experience I want to share real quick. One was with having work at inside the VA with their, I think the old name was Voc Rehab. So I've had experience with that. But then also after I was completed with it, I was integrated into a different program, which was where I had assigned a social worker to help me find work. And believe it or not, during that 2-year period, I was actually hired, but never started work because they never asked me to come to work. And so I was really not, I was on their payroll, but not really. And so I never found work. So then I started volunteering with the VA because I knew I had worth. And if no one was going to hire me, I was going to make myself my own CEO. And I started helping veterans. Okay. The reason why I have a job now is because of my lived experience. And if it wasn't for a job coming up in research and peer support, I wouldn't have had a job right now. So that's what I want to add to that.
Great. Okay. Anybody else want to? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I guess I'll throw something out there. And yeah, I mean, for me, no, I did not take advantage of anything like that. I've actually never been to a job interview that I was actually hired on. There's been a few times that I've been recruited, but I've never, I mean, I have put in several resumes, stuff like that, but I mean, barely ever got callbacks. And I ended up, I'm going to throw this out here, and sorry if this is oh no, this isn't inappropriate. I got off the medication using medical cannabis. Not that it was available in Pennsylvania, but it allowed me to get control back of my life. And then once the way that I got out of living in a pop-up camper was starting a business-to-business transportation company for legal cannabis, and that gave me purpose again. And sometimes you just gotta, figure out what interests you. And then I know there's so much red tape that comes with the VA right now in the government, and something that really drives me crazy. I mean, I lost my 100% disability while I've been up here because I couldn't make an appointment 360 miles away from my house that went to my ex-girlfriend's house. So taking control of yourself, and there's so many opportunities for veterans to start their own entrepreneurial stuff. And yeah, there's so many ways to go about it. That's my point.
All right, and I see Greg, I think your hand is raised. think you might be muted, Greg.
Oh, sorry, must accidentally hit the one on my headset. I really feel what Pearson was saying, and Jasmine was wondering on the particular challenges that we might have in instituting some of this. So of course, one of the challenges I've already mentioned, which is when it comes to the employment sector, try to find a group of employers of various industries and stuff that are willing to take the time to understand veterans, what our worth is to the country and what we've been through, and work with them to get them back into the workforce. Something that they hadn't been used to, being homeless. There's going to be challenges from the very top of the VA, and trying to persuade them that maybe less is more, especially when it comes to quality of housing, quality of training or retraining for civilian occupations. Challenges as far as convincing Congress that we need to be taking care of our veterans. Everybody in Congress tries to wave the flag and outdo the other person in Congress as far as their patriotism goes. Well, what about the people that allow them to have this patriotism right now, instead of goose stepping and saluting Iron Fist, whoever replaced Hitler or Tojo or any of these other people? I think in the country in general, ever since Korea and then how the Vietnam War was mismanaged by the civilian authorities in this country, people have kind of really gotten away from understanding the people who are in the military, the people who are veterans, and really respecting them and stuff, and of course it doesn't apply everywhere. It doesn't apply to every person, but I think that the people at the top of the VA are going to need to be convinced and need to go to Congress and tell them, if we're going to do something about this homeless problem among veterans, if we're going to do something about the drug and alcohol addiction in our veterans, if we're going to do something about stopping the suicides in our veterans, if we're going to support our lesbian, gay, transgender, queer people who are veterans, and like everybody else at some point are going to need medical care or housing assistance or something, that obviously you can't do anything if you don't have the appropriate amount of money. I would suggest to them to use Reagan's tactic. When Reagan would want $300 billion for the military, he'd go to Congress and demand 750. And so, Congress, of course, shot him down to, like 50 billion. And they'd just haggle back and forth. And finally, Congress would agree on 350 billion or something, and go, boy, we really got over on Reagan on that one. Meanwhile, Reagan's sitting back having a great laugh saying, I got exactly what I wanted. So, yeah, I think those are going to be the biggest challenges is uh, getting employers to work, getting the top brass to understand it's going to take money and time. Probably those two are the most largest challenges in this.
All right, I think Pearson's hand might be up in a comment in response.
Yeah, I mean, he's exactly right. I mean, we really need to try to get at least people in there that have the veteran experience. I think there's one senator that is a veteran. I know Senator Sullivan for Alaska. I think he's the only elected official in DC that's a veteran himself, or I think he's still serving. I think he's actually serving still in the Marine Corps. But you know what? I'm not going to get into politics. But yeah, I mean, he's exactly right. We need more support. We need more funding. That's the one thing that drives apparently everything these days. But the funding in the right places. I mean, they're printing money like crazy, and I just feel like they're going about it in a way that could be better.
Nope, you just put yourself on mute, Pearson.
Oh, I know that was it.
Okay.
I didn't want to continue. That's a sidebar conversation if anybody wants to talk more about that one.
Jasmine, I do see a question in here about the challenges of working with veterans or finding housing for veterans who have an other than honorable discharge.
Yes,
And
that was the next, yes.
I do know, maybe Dina can this may be a bright spot in the world, but I do think that there is some movement on increasing eligibility for VA services for those with other than honorable discharges.
Thank you. Yeah, and first of all, before we end, I agree with the chat box comments. This has been huge. Thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time to participate and also sharing with us your experiences. And definitely, so in regards to legislative authority, a lot of the stuff that the VA does is not based on just, myself, Justine in the VA, but rather the mandates that are given to us by Congress about what we can or can't do. And with that, there's new legislation that has just recently come, and we're now talking, HUD-VASH nationally is talking with the lawyers who will help us try to disseminate this, is that the HUD-VASH will be eligible, will be able to provide housing assistance to veterans with other than honorable. So not those veterans with dishonorable, but those with other than honorable, which is a thing that at the Homeless Programs Office, we've been advocating for sometimes to be able to expand that. So that's definitely a bright spot. It's kind of similar to what's happening with GPD, that veterans who have other than honorable can get housing support. Getting medical support, that might be something not as easily for the other than honorable group that HUD-VASH will be expanding. So one of the takeaways is, and that's one reason that Justine and I were so happy that all our panelists were able to come today, is that this group that you all are talking to, they're not only other veterans, people in the community that are providing services, but some policymakers too. So the things that I, as a physician, rely on are the advocacy that you who are utilizing the services to go give back feedback to the policymakers to say, hey, we all are wanting to do good things, and these are some areas of improvement that you as policymakers, not as VA or clinicians, can do, but policymakers. So thank you again for shining the light on various ideas.
Good stuff. All right, I feel like we're almost out of time. Our session's come to an end, sadly. One thing I did want to add, it does seem like a lot of people are listening to what you guys are saying, and they're hoping to bring this back to their communities. And I know our work at NCHB, it seems like somebody somewhere is listening, because the things you guys have said today are, they're happening slowly but surely. They're happening. Jack, let's see, Justine, I'm not sure if you want to close this out with any final comments. If not, I think we'll go ahead and wrap the session up. You guys, thank you again all for sharing. Thank you to the audience for your attendance and your feedback. It's been great.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Yeah. And
We have
thank
one
the
more session.
audience for being present and listening. Appreciate that too.
Thanks. Thank you all.
Everybody have a beautiful day and stay well.
Thank you. We have one more session this afternoon. We'll see you guys back at 3.
All right.
Thank you.
You guys take care.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.